When I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
my head up.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Moss?
Oh, my heart.
Happy 20th anniversary.
My heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? Done.
and dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself. There's
The doctor lived next door to the janitor to the reverend and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all the more.
letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. We have a special guest with us today discussing the future of the African-American male on the college campus, Dr. Michael Sinclair. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
So you're representing Brooklyn, huh?
BK all the way. This is the center of the universe.
The center of the universe. But I understand you love Baltimore too now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Baltimore is my home. It's where I live, it's where I work, and my people have accepted me in Baltimore. Coming back from Brooklyn, you know, there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah, it is. I had an auntie from New York, man. She was about 4'5". But boy, if you take we had a party once, and some people, this woman took too much seafood. We've been in Sheepshead Bay all day gathering seafood for this lobster Fray Diablo, and this lady took too much out the pot. And damn it, she didn't get up on a stool. And she said, put it back.
That's the Brooklyn way. That's the Brooklyn way.
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Got your bachelor's at SUNY, your master's at Columbia, and then the PhD down in Norfolk.
Yes, indeed.
So
I've had what you said, the best of both worlds, a HBCU as well as a Ivy League.
Yeah, Columbia. And Columbia, I understand, does right by native New Yorkers.
Yeah, Columbia is it's the 800-pound gorilla in the city of New York, and you know, Columbia University really prepares you to work in urban enclaves all across the world, not even the country, all across the world. So Columbia University does a lot. A lot of people may not know, and I'll share this with your listeners, that Columbia University is seated right there in Harlem, New York. You know, Harlem? Yeah, Columbia is right in Harlem. So Columbia is right there embedded in our community.
You know, how old are you, Doc?
I am 58 years old.
So you're mid-60s, baby, 66, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've seen what I've seen. You've seen the rise of hip hop. You probably know about the Last Poets.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
You've seen the music evolved out of the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
You know about Mark Breland, one of the baddest boxers I've ever watched.
Yes, yes.
how do we save our young black men? How do we save them from standing on the corner of Nostrand Avenue, Fulton Avenue, in Brooklyn and in Baltimore? How do we get them off the corners here off of Pennsylvania Avenue? How do we, I mean, all you had to do was show me Spelman, and I went to Morehouse. All I needed was one picture.
Well, you mentioned something that there is a lot of truth in your statement right there. A lot of our young men have never left their community. They have never left their community. So when I was living in New York, you know, I lived in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and there was no need for me to move to the Bronx. There was no need for me to go to Staten Island. Why go to the Bronx? Why go to Queens? When everything was in your community, and your community becomes your own ecosystem. But it sort of traps you into believing that the whole world is just like the 10 blocks that surround you. You know, so the first thing about saving our black men, getting them off the blocks, you know, one of the things that I would say is getting them out of the community, letting them see that there's a world out there. My father used to say this: the world is like a book, and those who haven't traveled have only seen one page. So it's getting them out there and getting them exposed to things. Getting them into college is a necessary for them to be on a campus so they can see people who look like them, who look like me, who look like you. And they say, I can't be what I can't see. So they need to see people who are in college doing well, and they can say, that's a possibility. I could see myself at Morgan State University. I could see myself at, you know, at various other HBCUs. I could fit in. I believe that there's some credibility in cultural congruence when you get on a campus and you see people that understand you, that validate your lived experience. And the last thing that I want to say about getting people off the block, to get our young men off the block, we need men. We need men to do that. We can't be scared of those young men that are on the blocks with their pants hanging low. We need to embrace them and lean into them and say, young man, let me speak to you for a second. Because they oftentimes won't be able to have the gravitas to come up to us, so we may need to come up to them. We need to start where, in social work, we say we need to start from where the client's at. So we need more men in the community that will reach out to young men and become a mentor, become a big brother, become a father figure, become a coach, become a Boy Scout troop leader. Those are the things that we're at the time right now where Black men need to do more for young Black men who are acutely feeling the pressures of society.
I just had this crazy idea. Mm-hmm. Can you get me a limo, a stretch limo, to show up 4 Fridays in a row at the corner of Pennsylvania and Lawrence? I'm going to offer them 4 weeks, 4 opportunities. We're going to Morgan, and then we're going to dinner. And then I'm going to bring you back to this corner. I guess it could take all of 4 hours. Mm-hmm. 4 opportunities, do 1 in West Baltimore, 1 in East Baltimore as an experiment. I'll do it myself. I'll be there. This is not a trap. You're not getting locked up. We're going to show you something. Then we're going to feed you. Then we're going to bring you back and let you choose. What do you think?
I think that would be an outstanding experiment. And I think there's a lot of young men that would take you up on that offer. I think that these young men, they're not resistant to elevating themselves and elevating their family. That hasn't been my experience over the 38 years that I've been working in the field. I believe that they would take you up on that offer because they want to see the other side of the world. And they feel that they're being cut out of the labor market. They feel that they're being disenfranchised and disempowered. And for that opportunity to go in a limo, I'd be sure, I'm going to, the treat's on you, you know, the meal's on you. I think that they would jump at that opportunity. But what my grandmother used to say, you put the sugar with the medicine. And a part of the medicine is to really bring them to Morgan's campus and walk them around and see what it is to live on campus. And they may have something that triggers them to say, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can be at Morgan. You know, maybe I could fit in a place in the world that, you know, they've been so many places that they feel locked out, but Morgan is a place where they fit in.
Big brother, 10 years ago, now I live 2 blocks from Pennsylvania Avenue. 10 years ago, the news reported the rioters are coming down the avenue. Freddie Gray. I run over to Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm a newsman. I've been a newsman since 94.
Mm-hmm.
I run over there, and the rioters were actually students from Douglas
mm-hmm.
who could not catch the subway because the subway station had been closed by the police commissioner, who didn't tell the principal of Douglas, which is right across the street. So the rioters that the news reported, I think the ones that Obama called thugs,
mm-hmm.
were students.
Yeah.
With button-down shirts and khaki pants walking down the avenue. This is 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have so much unpacked, unaddressed trauma that we can't see the light?
Unfortunately, I believe the answer is yes. I believe that we have been traumatized, and you know, it's one area that I've done some significant research. I think we have been traumatized in such a way that we are fearful of actually taking action. I think the community has also been mislabeled. You mentioned these are thugs. And I think that we have a tendency to take a look at young people as up to mischief, when there's a lot of good young people that are out there. And when their needs aren't being met, one of the things that I really appreciate is that they have the courage to ask for more. Now, if we don't really dissect what's going on, back in the 60s, you know, it was the young people that spurred the civil rights movement. They had nothing to fear. They had nothing to lose. So the young people were going from college to college and in a very, very old-fashioned way of making these connections, saying, hey, we're going to be meeting on March. We're going to be meeting and marching in Washington. Sometimes our elders have gotten so deep down that we don't see that as our future. Our young people are going to protest when they don't see something right, and they could expect more, and we should give them the tools and the skills to protest effectively. And I think that, you know, you mentioned Freddie Gray. One of the shortcomings of Freddie Gray is that back in the 60s and back in the 50s, our history tell us we had SCLC, and we had SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinated Committee, that really prepared students for their encounter with police. In 2014, we weren't prepared. We were literally caught with our hands in our pocket. And so when all this happened, we didn't have a method of expressing our grief and our disappointment. You know, so it came out, what it seemed to be, it came out as violence, but it was built up frustration. And Freddie Gray was the was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was not the center of it. It was the years of frustration and neglect.
You know, as you're talking, other names come to mind like Emmett Till.
Right. Actually, I have a daughter who's 23 years old. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Maya and Hannah and Nick. But she called me after George Gray incident. And she said, Dad, this is the worst race relations have ever been in this country. And I said, honey, you haven't lived long enough to understand that this is just the next episode. You haven't seen Tawana Browley's story. You haven't seen Yusef Hawkins. You haven't seen Eleanor Bumpers. You haven't seen Emmett Till. This is, George Gray, Freddie Gray and George Floyd simply were the latest chapter. So our country has a history of that sort of brutality against people of color. And here's the most unfortunate point about that. During the 60s and during the 50s, after Emmett Till and after all these uprisings, people in this country took to the streets and started protesting and started singing the songs, "We shall overcome," and no justice, no peace. And unfortunately, in 2020, and I suppose in 2025, we'll be singing the same songs, but change has really not come into fruition yet. So we're singing the same songs. We understand that this is a trend and a pattern in our society, but we haven't been able to fix it. So we go back to our old tools of singing and protesting, but not demanding a change.
Dr. Sinclair, you know that America represents 5% of the world's population, yet America has 25% of those incarcerated.
Absolutely.
My research suggests that 38% of the incarcerated in America are Black men, and Black women are the fastest growing demographic. Mm-hmm. How in the world can a people who make up approximately 13 to 17% of the population, how could the men in that subgroup alone practically comprise half of the incarcerated persons in America?
Okay, well, that's a loaded question. Let me see if I could unpack that with you. Okay, the first issue that I have a great concern with is the judicial system that tends to still be biased against poor people. It just so happens that Black men are acutely negatively involved in poverty. We just don't have the funds to have a good general counsel. And, that's one aspect.
Going to court without a lawyer.
Yeah.
Public defender alone ain't going to do it. Need a lawyer.
We can't afford one. And I would even go as far as...
we can. Doc, they got $200 belts on. Now, you can put that $200 on a lawyer. If you're going to stand on that corner, you can put a down payment on a lawyer.
Well, but you understand the judicial system is, I'm going to, without the facts in front of me, I know that a large majority of the cases that go to court are ended up pleading out, and the defendants are offered a plea deal. So when you have a 18B lawyer, or you have a public defender, and they say, listen, this case looks like a lot of work, and if you plead and take this plea deal, you'll be out by Monday. And a lot of our young people end up taking a plea deal and not realizing the ramifications later on of now pleading out to a felony drug arrest. It's going to impact your career. So those are systemic issues that are still there. In order to get the Black man back on track of where he needs, he also needs to be able to reassimilate back into the family. What has happened over the last 70 years is systemically, and you remember some of the movies like Claudine. Do you remember that movie?
Chased James Earl Jones out the house. He couldn't be with the woman. He had to hide from the social worker. He jumped out the window half naked.
Absolutely. So in incidents like that, systematically and structurally, we have a lot of Black men who have not identified their role in the family. You know, now that women are into the labor force just as much as men, if not, they're doing extremely successful, and I applaud my sisters for doing so. Where does that leave a Black man who was traditional breadwinner?
Emasculated.
Yeah. And he finds his spouse or his partner, his paramour, be his competition and not his support. So we have a role that's undefined. And here's the trick of it. Our fathers could not give us any more guidance because they're like, I don't know, that's a different world. You know, our fathers who grew up in the 40s and 50s, they were like, we didn't have to deal with that.
They were the breadwinner. The
Yeah,
woman was home cooking.
Yeah, they were the breadwinners. So we are uncharted territory. So we have these young men who want to experience the American dream. And unfortunately, I'm going to use the words of Dr. Jawan Kunjufu. There's 6 ways that a Black man can make money really quickly without going to college. And one is a lottery. And what are your chances of winning the lottery?
1 in a million.
2, a settlement. So if you have lead poisoning and you can win a settlement. 3,
they call that black oil.
Yeah.
Black gold. Black gold.
Yeah.
That's what the lawyers downtown call it.
3, yeah. 3, inheritance. What are your chances of a young Black man inheriting $1 million? 1 in a million.
10%, I would say.
Yeah. I'm going to say even less than that. We don't have that sort of collective wealth in our community for many of us. The 4th one is being a professional athlete. You know, going from high school, going into pro like LeBron, or going in, you know, or Kobe. Professional athlete. 5 is being a professional entertainer. You know, the Chris Brown, the young people that are coming out who are young entertainers. And by the way, rap music, you know, from the Bronx has made more millionaires than any other genre for young Black people. The last one is selling drugs. So these are our opportunities are limited. So, you know, a lot of our young men want to experience the American dream. And the thing is, because they're cut out of certain opportunities, I think that they find it tempting, you know, in order to get the quick buck so that they could feel superficially like they've made it. Like, hey, I've made it. I'm able to finally buy this gold chain or platinum chain. I'm able to wear these expensive suits. And these are symbols of success that a lot of our young people still embrace.
70% single mother households.
Mm-hmm.
You combine that with a 70% recidivism rate, and that Black women are now the fastest growing demographic in the prisons.
Mm-hmm.
You juxtapose that to a Black America who in the 40s and 50s were more married than any other community.
Right. But we didn't have a choice then. You know, they made it vogue to see that divorcing, you know, what we are into right now is what I call serial monogamy. I'm just here for the night, you know, I'm just taking advantage of this opportunity, and if it doesn't work out, and we have together have birthed a couple of our children, but we're going to keep it moving. Now, I think that we need to go back to the Black family, because when you have a weak Black family, you have a weak Black community. And I think we need to address getting men back in the family. And we need to start being very intentional and deliberate about getting men back into the family. I heard one comedian say this, and it was satirical, but it really stung because there was a little bit when I heard it. They said that white women go to college to find a husband. Black women go to college to prove that they don't need one. That bothered me.
So now you have this alpha female who's so independent, and what is the word toxic to you?
I use this a lot in speaking. We have embraced what I call, as Black men, we have redefined what it means to be masculine. And I think that, I hope this is where you're going with this, but toxic masculinity is that type of masculinity where you're no longer the protector, you become the offender. And it's interesting that men in their bravado and their machismo don't understand what it really means to be a man and be a protector of his family and of his loved ones. They believe that masculinity is demonstrated by their aggression. And I think this is where it gets really, really, really insidious, because I think that much of our society has sort of categorized Black men in a box of being hyper aggressive and hypersexualized. And we are much more than that. We are much, much more than that. So this sort of toxicity sort of stains the man that we could be. But we need more men to help young men understand that, hey, being able to beat 10 people up or being able to shout down somebody else is not a part of your masculine identity. It's actually, you become the offender. And a lot of it is based upon misunderstanding or frustration that many men feel. So, toxicity in our masculinity, we need to help men define what it means to be a man.
Therapy. I think everybody needs therapy. I think white people need. I think if all the Black people get therapy and white people don't get it, then we right back at square one. Because, okay, you're the doctor and you're a social worker. You Dr. King was a sociology major.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Therapy
is needed, but unfortunately, let me share what my perception is. Therapy is needed, but Abraham Maslow has a hierarchy of needs, and at the very base of this pyramid is people, not just Black people, but people need to have food, clothing, and shelter, their basic needs. At the pinnacle, at the top of the hierarchy of needs, it's a point of self-actualization. And I think that we are often caught up as a people in just surviving, that we're not thriving. If you have to work 2 jobs to put food on the table, to spend time really working on yourself seems to be excessive. It seems to be a luxury that we can't afford. But I do agree. And I do think that therapy is something that we need to normalize in our community. The schools should be teaching that a show of strength. I like to say this to my clients. I like to say that reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness. it's actually a sign of strength. So for many of our young people to understand that if they're overwhelmed, it's not a bad thing. You're not broken, you're not defective, but you're reaching out for help. So we need to normalize and destigmatize going to therapy. I've heard people, in certain communities, I'm not talking about our communities, but they talk about therapists in a very matter of fact. Oh yeah, I'm going to golf this weekend, and after I go to golf, I'm going to have my appointment with my physical trainer, and then I'm going to see my therapist. And
But I've heard other communities also stigmatize, non-Black communities stigmatize therapy. Oh, you're going to a therapist? Oh, that's nothing you can talk about at Thanksgiving dinner. When the truth be told, again, if Black people get all the therapy in the world and white people don't, or vice versa, well, nobody's getting better.
Right. We do need therapy, and we do need to normalize seeking help and seeking counseling. And when I say stigmatize it, I know NAMI does a wonderful job of destigmatizing many of these mental health issues, and so does Out on My Own and Baltimore Behavioral Health. There's a lot of agencies that are going out there that are trying to destigmatize it. But what we have been told is that going to therapy is also an admission that something is broken, like you're defective. And that's not the case, but we need to get that word out there, and everybody could benefit in therapy. And I'm going to say this, it should be likened to going to your physical checkup.
It's maintenance.
It's maintenance.
Man, life happens at warp speed, faster than the NFL. You can go through one day. You're from New York. You from the time you leave your house till the time you get to the A train, you have seen a multi-ring circus from people trying to come at you, from drugs to hookers.
The flood of humanity. The flood of humanity.
And a therapist helps you to slow it down and make sense of it.
Yeah. It helps you take care of yourself. And we need to have that outlet. And it needs to be not just for the rich. We need to have poor people be able to seek out help. And historically, what we have done is we've turned to the church and religious institutions to provide that sort of counseling around family issues. Somebody dies, you go to your church. And I believe that that's a good entree. But one of the things that we've been doing over the last 40 years, at least to my knowledge, is we've been helping the churches understand that when somebody comes to you and is exhibiting some bizarre behavior, that continue to pray for them, but also connect them to the resources that they need so they could get some therapy around it. And, have the churches as allies would actually make it palatable for a lot of older African-American families.
And get some of the mushes some sensitivity training, because they act like they ain't never been drunk before. You come up in the church is supposed to be a triage unit. I can't tell you how many of them ushers chase people right back to 42nd Street, right back to Pennsylvania Avenue with an old snotty attitude.
Yeah.
The church is a shock trauma for people.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome those people in. We'll sit a well-dressed person, we'll sit them on the front row.
Right. Well, we have some work to do in the churches too. But yeah, I think that we do need to have some avenues. And again, I've been critical of this. I think the churches also need to keep their doors open.
See, there was a time, Doc, when the church was the center of the Black community. Mm-hmm. But then people left Brooklyn and went to Strong Island.
Yeah, my family did. My family migrated. They came a part of the Great Migration from Brooklyn, because again, we were sold a bag of goods, and I want to be very clear. They had some good intentions, you know, and I want to say that if my parents did not move us out to Long Island eventually, you know, late in my adolescence, I may have become another statistic in Brooklyn, just another Black man that ended up dead in Brooklyn. So they moved out to the Great Migration, and in Baltimore, they move out to Towson, they move out to, you know,
Randallstown.
Yeah, Randallstown, and not because they want safety, but they also are told that, you know, moving on up like the Jeffersons, this is how you show your success. You move out of the community.
There's a problem with it, though, Doc.
Oh, I know, because there's what we call the residual effect. Who's left?
We weren't going to PTA meetings in the city,
right?
So we ain't going to the PTA meetings in the county.
Right.
We don't vote in the county. Baltimore County's got one Black council person and no one on bench to take his spot because he wants to run for county exec. So we stopped fighting. We stopped getting engaged, involved. We moved to Harford County.
Right.
So half of our time we spend trying to assimilate,
right,
with some people who could care less.
Yep.
And then the Black people who are out there, they don't even know if they can speak to another Black person in public.
And that's a part of our social.
Like, come on, dude, slavery's over. You can speak.
Yeah. Our socialization is that, you know, these other people's grass is greener than our grass. For some reason, we feel that their life is better, and we want to assimilate into their culture and their norms and their traditions that haven't even really worked for them. You know, much less it doesn't work for us. So that's a part of the brainwashing or the miseducation, as Carter G. Woodson said, the miseducation of the Negro in our country. Our Black community.
We go to school to work for somebody else.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I think our Black community needs to do is we need to have this understanding, you know, and this is where a lot of people have taken this. We need to have a declaration of interdependence, making no distinction between the welfare of our brethren and ours. We need to stop using these artificial barriers to galvanize as a community. I should not have to ask you as a Black man to Black man before I help you, what church do you belong to? You know, those are artificial barriers. If you're Muslim, if you're, you know, Jewish, if you're Pentecostal, I should still have this overall arcing feeling of collectivism. That
we teaching people. Harriet Tubman tried to teach them this, but we still don't get it. We don't get Harriet Tubman. It's 2025, and we still don't understand Harriet Tubman. She sacrificed her freedom to go get people.
And what you said right there, I just want to underscore, she was able to understand that there was a bigger picture, and she was willing to sacrifice. A lot of young people don't know what it means to sacrifice.
No.
They don't want to put any skin in the game. And you know, I want to be very clear. There's no struggle, there's no progress, as Frederick Douglass said. We need sacrifice. There are going to be.
No, this is microwave generation. They hit you up on LinkedIn. Sir, can you give me an opportunity? Oh, pimp. I was taught if I want something from Dr. Michael Sinclair, and I hope you're listening out there, people younger than 59. If you want something from Dr. Michael Sinclair, try this approach. hello, Dr. Sinclair. Do you need anything?
Right.
What can I do for you? Because when you have what you need, I think you'll be more likely to help me with what I need. But we go so selfishly. Me, 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 me. It's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me.
Right.
Doc, I need your expertise on this. Kendrick Lamar put on. What did Kendrick Lamar do at halftime? Let's start with that. I've seen some really articulated pieces, and I don't want to, from Sam Jackson to the Squid Games to the dancers to the prison yard to Serena. That was more than a halftime show with a naked breast coming out front. This was something sapiosexual, something cerebral, something mind-blowing, and on time. Help me out. What you see?
Yeah, kudos to Kendrick Lamar for what he did. And I thought it was very thoughtful and very intentional. And what he did was a lot of code switching, in my opinion. There was a lot of code switching. Those people who are a fan of the genre of rap music understood that there was a message that he was sending out to millions of people who were watching the Super Bowl about the inequalities and the injustice in our society. And he said it it was coded. If you were listening for it, if you were in tune to what he was saying, you were like, oh, there's a message in this madness, And I think that he was very clever in doing that, and he had opportunity. But one of the things that I really want to, raise him up for is he had the courage to actually go out there and plant some seeds, of, this whole performance had little gems that were weaved inside his performance that people who were listening to it realized that he was saying not only to the people who follow his music, his fan base, but he was saying to our society that we need to take a look at things and we need to start questioning some of the things that are happening. And I think that was very clever, and I give him some kudos for what he did. Because all the time, keep it on beat. It was music, and people, people who were not ready to tune in saw it as a fancy show. But some people got some messages in there. That's what I thought.
The dancers had on red, white, and blue.
That was a message. That wasn't done. Yeah, that wasn't done by happenstance. It was, look at this, people. Even Samuel Jackson's portrayal of Uncle Sam and what he said, those are messages. And again, those people who were listening to it, they got, like I said earlier, a little bit of sugar with the medicine. They danced. They had a good time. But
it was so much deeper.
It was so much deeper. And
now, I didn't watch Django. I refused to watch it. I thought Quentin Tarantino's verbiage at the time about being the best slavery movie made it something I had no interest in seeing. But it's my understanding that Samuel Jackson playing Uncle Sam, the house Negro, was like the role he played in that movie.
Yeah. I can see the resemblance. I think people, again, we as a people need to get back to, you mentioned earlier about being on the block or being in a barbershop. I think that we need to have these difficult conversations in safe spaces where we could debrief some of the things that we watch, we hear, and things that we see in our community. We need a place, a safe space to debrief, you know, and it traditionally has been barbershops, sometimes the church, sometimes it happens at the bar. But we need safe spaces that we could talk about things that we all intuitively feel, but we need to give it language, and we need to benefit from the wisdom of those people who came before us, because sometimes young people don't see the big picture. They only see the frame.
Well, everybody sees Trump, and I'm learning this afterwards that Mahomes is a Trump fan, he and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like Mahomes represented the Republicans and the Eagles represented the Democrats.
Right. I sort of subscribe to
And
what
then
Malcolm.
look, one last thing: the Eagles' billionaire owner was a supporter of some Democrats over the years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that when it comes down to politics, I think that I sort of subscribe to the words of Malcolm X. You know, when Malcolm X makes an analogy, he did it in a way that is understood by many, where he said that we have two parties that want the same thing, the Republicans and the Democrats. And one is a sheep and the other one is a fox. The fox will friend the sheep and make the sheep believe that that it's his friend. But the wolf is going to not friend the sheep, and it's going to come in aggressively and say, you know, I want a piece of pork chop, you know, or I want a lamb chop, you know. And I think we need to see these parties as two sides of the same coin. I really think that we need to hold our local constituents and our elected officials accountable for work that's in our community. And I think that we need to do that. I believe that, you know, and I'm going to just go out and say it. I've understood how our current president works because I'm a New Yorker. I've seen him over the last 50 years work in Brooklyn and how he didn't pay his workers and how he accused the Central Park Five of doing things that they didn't do. Excuse me.
Including Yusuf Salam, who is now a council person.
Right. So I understood his mindset before his first election and his second election. But I also had an opportunity to work in rural Southwest Virginia, where all they saw was the current president as being their leader. And what they didn't understand is that he has no interest in poor communities, period. White or black, he has no interest in them. He has an interest in himself, and he's running this government in my way, very much in a way that he has a self-interest.
The topic today is saving the young black man.
Mm-hmm.
We have talked about college, we have talked about the church, and that would include, of course, the mosque or any other form of spirituality. We've talked about mass incarceration. We've talked about the broken family. We've talked in and around relationships. We have a society now where a young black man is more likely to encounter an upwardly mobile black woman who's making more money, who has higher standards, higher self-value. What else can we do to help our sons become the leaders, the kings, the fathers? Or has the formula changed? I mean, I hear people say, oh, times have changed. Let me tell you something. If you crack slick on my daddy in 1965, it was no different than 2005. Disrespect was unacceptable.
Right.
Entitlement was unacceptable. you're going to get out there and work and save and common sense.
Right.
Now we got book sense with no common sense.
We have to see this as a multi-layered approach, multi-tiered approach in saving Black men. Our task force at Morgan State University under the leadership of David K. Wilson is really a task force that's really taking a look at how do we get and recruit Black men to go to college. If we take a look at the current statistics, since 2010, there's been a 25% drop in Black male enrollment. But Morgan State University is not alone in this issue. We've become somewhat what I consider a canary in a coal mine. So what we're seeing at HBCU is what we're seeing across the country. There's a national trend of Black men not enrolling in school, but we have to get them to the door. So a part of our thinking as we put together this task force, and I have to say that my co-chair, Dr. Mark Barnes, and I have been working on not only gathering the literature and really getting deep into literature, but we have a diverse group on our task force that's going to be really taking a look at what issues in the community are leading Black men to other opportunities, whether it's vocational work, but not considering college as a viable opportunity that's for them. So we have to take a look at the recruitment. We also have to take a look at how we could sustain them once they get into college. What sort of programs help Black men feel a sense of belonging once they get on campus? That's something that we have to take a look at because their goal is to graduate. One of the things that we point out is that Black men not enrolling in college is problematic. Not graduating is problematic, but it has long-term ramifications to the mobility, the socioeconomic mobility of Black families that's going to last for the next couple of decades.
And to be, we have a guest that regularly comes on this show, and I'm gonna put this challenge to you, Doc, to Morgan State. I finished my master's there in May, God willing, Jesus tarry, and the creek don't rise. I plan to walk that stage. My daughter will be graduating with her bachelor's from Coppin State around that same time. So let me just get to it. We need some money.
Yeah.
I need a limo. I need lunch at that fancy new eatery over there. And I need them right. I need to go right to the streets.
Mm-hmm.
North and Greenmount, East Monument Street, Park Heights, Pennsylvania Avenue. A $100 stipend to spend the day. And here's the caveat, Doc. And I know you don't want to hear it because you represent Morgan State. But Coppin is not your enemy.
Oh, no.
University of Baltimore is not your enemy. We see it here on Pennsylvania Avenue. You got Penn North, you got Druid Heights, you got Sandtown, and they'll put some grant money downtown, and all of these nonprofits around Pennsylvania Avenue are competing for the same pot of money. We need all of the schools involved.
Right.
To get off, because if they don't go to Morgan, maybe they will go to UB. If they don't go to UB, maybe they will go to Beechwood. Let me say it like this. When Freddie Gray happened,
mm-hmm.
in the white community, if Freddie Gray happened in the white community, the first thing they would have sent was a bunch of Winnebagos with therapists lined up and down North Avenue, East Monument Street. Oh, come on in. We know you've been traumatized. Sit down, have some orange juice. Let's take your blood pressure. Let's check your temperature. Let's see how you're doing.
Yeah.
But the black community is like a dog that just generation after generation after generation just gets kicked. Now white people go through one damn thing. Oh my God. Oh my. Bring out the therapist, the whole school, the whole community can't handle one bit of damn pressure.
Right.
It's almost as if we're expected to take this mistreatment.
Right. These microaggressions.
We need everybody, even the churches, even the preachers. And the truth is, what I was getting to about this regular guest that comes on the show, Dr. Zolikoff, a physician. Dr. Michael Zolikoff, his daddy helped found the Black Medical Center, Garwood Medical Center. He says we don't like poor people, not white people. Doc, I got to say it to you. We talk about DEI. We talk about DEI. Oh, Trump, he's killing DEI. What about how we treat each other? Because damn if I met some black people in some upwardly mobile communities who wouldn't dare come to North Avenue, who stigmatize people in their own damn family who live on North Avenue, because now they live in Woodstock. Now they live in Harvard Grace. Now they live in Carroll County. We worse than the white people toward each other. Where's the DEI in the community?
Here's a part of the miseducation, as we talked about earlier on. When a black person achieves some level of success and some wealth, if they are indoctrinated in a way that they believe that they've done it on their own, this rugged independent individualism that our country tends to tell us that, hey, you worked harder to get to where you are. What we forget, and we talked about this earlier, and I want to circle back, sacrifice. My grandmother had to sacrifice, her pay, her money. I was in debt when I went to college, and there was times where, I still see this at Morgan today in 2024. We have pastors that are in Alabama who put around the offering plate to help pay for the first semester tuition of a young girl going to Morgan because she's first generation going to college. She didn't think about the other 7 semesters that are, coming along after that. They got enough money from passing around the plate in church to send one child for 1 semester and had no intention of how we're going to pay for that. I bring that up because, one of the things that we have to start thinking about is when we've made it or when we have achieved a certain success, I think that we as a culture need to feel a sense of obligation to leave breadcrumbs for people who are coming behind us.
No, we too damn selfish. I got mine, you got yours to get. And some of us, we get there and say, oh, look at the people on the corner. They're so pathetic.
But people think that, again, if you are led to believe that your parents and your grandparents and your extended family didn't sacrifice to make sure that you went to Morehouse, you start thinking that the only reason why I went is, huh?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
The 3 semesters in Morehouse, that's all I got. Well, roughly 2 years in Atlanta, but it saved my life.
But if we start to believe that we did it only on our own merit.
Oh no. A whole bunch of people. I am, oh my God, it's a long list.
So I have a lot of affluent friends who say, who start to adopt this crazy notion, don't give to the poor, it ruins their initiative, and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And what happens is we say that to ourselves to sort of numb ourselves from our sense of obligation to give back to the
What if
community.
Harriet Tubman felt that way?
One of the things that people know if you read Harriet Tubman, she had to pull a gun on people.
Yes, that's my favorite part.
If
She
you
hip tossed, I don't know if you saw the movie, she hip tossed dude.
Yeah.
Put that grill right in his face.
She was like, this is bigger than you. This is bigger than you. You don't have the luxury of saying, I want to go back and snitch on everybody else. You have to be, as they say in the community, you have to be 10 toes down. You have to be about your business. So I think that, one of the things, and I'll be the first one to tell you that this, what I have on today, is my costume. If you see me in the streets, you see me on North Avenue, I'm going to be in my Timbs. I'm going to be, I'm going to be in my sneakers. And so what happens is a lot of Black folks that get some level of wealth, and the first thing that they do is they move out of the community. And when you started out the segment and you said you're from Brooklyn, I represent my borough because I know where my roots are. Some people say, "Oh no, I'm from Dix Hills, Long Island. I'm from the Hamptons." And you disassociate yourself from the people that really sacrifice to get you there. And I think that we need to turn back, and we need to see in Baltimore those people who are successful. We need a clarion call to come back home. I know you grew up, in Penn Lucy. We know you grew up there. Come back home, because our young people need to see your success. They need to see you in the community. They don't need to read about you in a paper. They don't need to see you on TV. They don't need your presence. They need your presence. They need you to be there, tangible, touch, And I think that we need to have more people who have been somewhat successful re-engage back in the communities from whence they came, come back to the elementary schools, and you don't realize that we spend more money on stupid stuff that if we just went back to the community in their homes in Baltimore that don't have one book to read. The family just doesn't have books. There are people who are missing meals. My young son was talking about poverty when he went, and was taking a look at an abroad program. And I was like, there's poverty right here in Maryland. You don't have to go to Bangladesh to see poverty. You can see poverty, abject poverty, right here in Baltimore.
So, Doc, here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to put in some hours, however many it takes, to do outreach, to bring young men to Morgan for lunch. Now, we don't need the limos. I can get a bus, maybe.
Mr. Glover, don't threaten me with a good time. Don't threaten me with a good time. I'll take you over.
I'm willing to do the work. I want to bring some young men to Morgan to see the campus. I mean, like I said, when they showed me the brochure for Morehouse, I didn't know I was looking at Spelman cheerleaders.
Get them on campus.
Yes.
Get them on campus. And one of the things, again, this was very intentional. Morgan State is an open access campus. They need to be able to walk across campus, and there's nothing more gratifying to see young brothers and sisters that are sitting out on the lawn, eating and talking in their small groups, right there, right after the weather breaks and people start coming out of their dorms. When they start seeing that, they start seeing that there's another place that they can call home. And one of the things that I really cherish about Morgan is that the people who have experienced going away to HBC, and I'm just going to say Morgan as one of them, they really relished the time they were at Morgan. They really cherished that. They're like, this was, like what you said, saved my life. This was a place where I grew up. I met some lifelong friends. You know, you got to meet people who were invested in you. And that's what it is to go to the HBCU, is where you see somebody who looks like you, who's saying, there's a bigger picture. I'm going to put a, you know, I'm going to say this figuratively, I'm going to hold you accountable. Young man, I'm going to hold you accountable. I want to see you in class. So don't let me come looking for you, you know, because I'm invested in your success, as Harriet Tubman was invested in the success of the people that she transported in the Underground Railroad.
Any final thoughts, Dr. Sinclair? We have to bring you back again. And you got to tell me, if you put your information in the private chat, I'll make sure I just put my number in there. How can I think the little red thing should have shown up. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think that we have just begun in talking about the task force particularly. I like to liken the task force as really uncovering something. And I think our president, President Wilson, has really touched on a third rail, because we have gotten so many calls from student groups who said, we're invested in the increase in Black male enrollment at Morgan. We have 100 Black men community groups. We have alumni calling back and say, hey, we're invested. We heard about what you're doing there. We have other organizations and other institutions and calling from all over the country, from Memphis, Tennessee, from Oregon, from California, from New York, saying, we heard what you're doing at Morgan and we want in. How can we help? So really, there's been an overwhelming show of support of increasing Black male enrollment at Morgan. And people want to participate, people want to help. And Dr. Mark Barnes and I are going to be hearing all these voices, and we're going to come up with some workable solutions for President Wilson and the Morgan State community.
I want in. I imagine you'll have something for people in person and virtual. And it would be, you know what I really want to see? And this, I got to say it. When Freddie Gray happened, University of Maryland became the experts on Freddie Gray. And I'm like, hold up. Coppin right there. Morgan right over there. Back at the time, I think Sojourner Douglas might have still been around. You know, man, we have two powerful HBCUs. One in the East, one in the West. We need each other.
Right. Right.
Can you see Dr. Wilson and Dr. Jenkins walking across North Avenue? A march? I'm in. Count me in. My information's in the private chat there. We're proud of you, Dr. Sinclair, and whatever I can do to help, I will.
Thank you so much. And you have my personal information. If not, I'll put it in the chat.
Please do. Yes, sir.
And please, we're different fingers on the same hand. And I appreciate all the work that you do to bring this to people's attention. And I'm going to be looking forward to seeing you walk across campus. First of all, walk across the stage. That's something. But I want to see you walking across campus with those young men. I'll be your campus tour.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, man.
Yes, sir. You too, big brother. Good morning, world.